All Hallows Eve, that time of year again when all creatures of the night are unleashed to the world. It's time to return to where it all started. Another year, but the scares continue. Another month, but the fear proceeds to rise. This is the Venom month of horrors 2, Trapped in Time.
Greatest horror movie of all time. Opinions are like assholes, everybody's got one, some are full of shit, and mine never quits and is always 100% right. Because it's lopsided on one side. It's an age-old question, and my personal choice, until I'm proven otherwise, who knows, it might even be surpassed at some point on this list, is the 1986 adaptation of The Fly. The film follows Seth Brundle, played by Jeff Goldblum, who is a scientist at some party, before meeting a journalist, Veronica, played by Gina Davis, and despite only just meeting her and desperately wanting his dick wet, he immediately shows her his greatest invention, a creation that will change the world forever. I get that he's lonely, but I still find it odd that he shows her this great invention so quickly, knowing that she's a journalist, and then he gets mad when she wants to write about it.
Yes. It's finally done. The light bulb. The greatest invention this world has ever seen. You are going to change this entire planet forever. But no one must know about you yet.
Hey Tommy, are you coming back to bed? I'll do that thing with your balls you like.
Hey baby, do you want to see something? Seth struggles to get the pods to teleport living organisms, originally slaughtering a baboon and messing up some perfectly delicious looking steaks, before finally succeeding on himself but unknowingly merging his DNA with a stowaway fly in the process. The rest of the film is a metaphor for watching a loved one going through cancer or some similar disease, as Veronica watches Seth slowly deteriorate with incredible makeup and, in my opinion, the greatest practical effects I have ever seen in a film in my life.
Let's see if anything in this book can actually top it and change my mind.
There's also a subplot of her ex-boyfriend who has a beard that you can automatically tell he's the douchebag bad guy. They don't even try to make it subtle.
I'll go. I have to put this issue to bed. You want me to come back later and tuck you in?
No, don't you get it? I am finally onto something that's big, huge.
Yeah? What? His cock? Do I have permission to claim your body when this is all over?
I am the bad guy. I also kill old women and eat babies. I'm evil. He even breaks into her apartment just to use a shower. During all of this, Seth and Veronica have sex. Like, a lot. It's kind of all they do. Then she gets surprised when she falls pregnant. Well, if you just put the TV on every once in a while instead of shagging all day. It's a very strange relationship because not only does he show her the invention right away, but...
I was thinking that we could take a holiday.
We could?
You know, like an old married couple. The old man's got a couple weeks off, so they go to Florida, someplace warm.
Old married couple. Holiday. They've been together 20 seconds. I've got a carton of milk in my fridge I've had a longer relationship with. The sex is terrible. This was actually the first ever 18 rated movie that I ever saw. I first watched this film when I was about 10 or 11. Please don't judge my parents.
This is social services. Come on out with your hands up.
Don't take me away, no! And it really scarred me for life. This scene in particular where Seth breaks the dude's arm. I turned it off and I was so traumatized I couldn't even attempt to watch the film again for years.
Can't deal with the flesh. It only seems to work with inanimate objects, nothing that's living.
Try putting Matthew Broderick through it. Here, it just looks like they weren't even shooting. Jeff Goldblum just got drunk on set.
As the general said, there's nothing I'd ask you to do that I wouldn't do myself, boys.
Man, what is he doing? Exercises? This is so ridiculous.
The acting is all so good, especially Jeff's subtlety with the fly twitches. It's all absolutely perfect. Sometimes it grows difficult to like Seth's character as he becomes a douchebag with his transformation, but it makes sense because, you get it? Flies are assholes. I mean, they really are. No one likes the little bastards. That's clearly the message they were trying to get across here. I talk a lot of bollocks, don't I? The pacing is also incredible. The storytelling is so intense and the suspense always has you on the edge of your seat throughout. The musical score drags you even further into the action and it's genius filmmaking at its finest.
I got one ear.
I got no ears.
What are you doing on my fucking ceiling?
You're a fraud, Spider-Man.
And your fingers are too fat, so you fucking type with a stick.
The love story is excellent and really emotional towards the final moments. The dialogue is all very well written and I really can't find many faults. It's a bit weird though that the film opens in mid-conversation with two characters that have already met. So if you really want some really tiny nitpicks, because let's be honest, the film is a masterpiece, but if you really want me to nitpick, how does Beard Man come up with his brilliantly accurate picture of Seth after just meeting him once?
You're jealous.
They make out with their eyes open. Who does that?
You're jealous.
This hat sucks. It's like a virgin hat. You put this hat on and it repels women.
You're jealous.
A grown man is wearing Y-fronts.
You're jealous.
Here, Seth sounds like a goddamn child who doesn't get his way.
You're too chicken shit to be a member of the Dynamic Duo Club? Okay, then great. I'll find somebody else. You're jealous!
When he's at the bar, he calls this woman a hooker, then he breaks the dude's arm and she's horrified. 2 seconds later, they get outside and he's fine and she seems to find it rather arousing.
You're jealous!
They unintentionally inspired Basic Instinct.
You're jealous!
All this technology and yet I can't close the YouTube app on my phone without the music stopping.
You're jealous!
This guy looks like a creepy pedophile.
You're jealous!
What the hell is this noise?
You're jealous!
Isn't this a bit risky? Shooting the wires of a pod while your girlfriend is trapped inside? She could come out half baboon.
You're jealous!
And it unfortunately ends with my most hated thing to ever appear in a movie, having the closing credits appear immediately after the climax. No resolution, no aftermath, nothing, just, okay, he's dead, moving on, bye.
You're jealous!
And I'm done. The movie has drama, horror, romance, comedy, suspense, everything needed for a great horror film, but where did it all start? Well, the entire saga began in 1957 with George Longish-Lawn's short story The Fly, which was then adapted just a year later to the big screen by director Kurt Newman, starring Vincent Price. In 1959, it received a sequel, Return of the Fly, and then Curse of the Fly followed in 1965, both of which were commercial failures. In the early 80s, co-producer Kip Ehrman approached screenwriter Charles Edward Pogue with the idea of remaking the original film. Pogue checked out the book and movie and showed interest before talking producer Stuart Cornfeld into joining the project as well. They pitched the idea to 20th Century Fox, who were keen to accept, and Pogue was paid quickly to write up a screenplay. He wrote an outline similar to the novel and original film, but he and Cornfeld thought it best to focus more on the gradual transformation, and executives themselves weren't happy with the first draft either. So much so, they instantly withdrew from the project altogether. After negotiation, Cornfeld managed to get a deal where the studio would distribute the film if he could manage to set up funding through another source. The new producer was none other than Mel Brooks, and his company Brooks Films would be producing the picture. He received the script, liked it, but felt a different writer was needed. At that moment, Charles Edward Pogue was removed and Wallen Green was brought on to rewrite, as he felt the original draft wasn't a step in the right direction. Pogue was then brought back to try to polish up the material. So you bring back the guy who wrote the script that you thought was arse to try to polish up the new improved version.
You're jealous!
Next, they wanted to find a suitable director, and David Cronenberg was their first choice. Unfortunately, he was unable to accept as he was working on a tiny unheard of movie at the time called
Total Recall. Total fucking shit.
Tim Burton was also considered and almost got the place in the director's chair. Cornfeld went for Robert Bierman after seeing one of his short films and flew him to LA to meet. Unfortunately, Bierman's family were vacationing in South Africa at the time and his daughter was tragically killed in an accident. Bierman, understandably, got on a plane immediately and Brooks and Cornfeld gave him a month before contacting him in regards to returning to work. Bierman explained that he was unable to do so soon and they completely understood. 3 more months passed before they reached out to him again, but Bierman backed out the entire production altogether. Mel Brooks said that he understood completely and finally released him from his contract. After release, to this day, Robert Bierman has refused to ever watch The Fly as it brings back bad memories and he doesn't want to see his original vision of the movie being compromised. Luckily, David Cronenberg was now no longer working with Total Recall after backing out of the project and agreed to direct The Fly if he'd be allowed to rewrite the script. The original screenplay focused on the married couple of Jeff, the scientist, and Barbara. The pods were kept secret from Jeff's employers and most of the final plot points in the finished film remain. The only differences were that they continued to have Jeff completely mute during his transformation. Obviously, this is before anyone told him that it was a goddamn stupid idea. And the main focus was his bosses taking over the teleportation pods upon discovery, leading to Jeff destroying them. There was also a sequence where Jeff tries to teleport a monkey, but it doesn't rematerialize and seemingly vanishes, much like the cat in the original film. However, when his employers try a feline themselves, they merge them together into into a monkey-cat hybrid which then has to be killed. Cronenberg revised the script and pretty much rewrote the characters and dialogue completely from scratch. He combined two characters into one, giving us the evil beard man from the planet Subtle, expanded on the transformation, and created the disease metaphorical aspects of the story. The monkey-cat hybrid idea was changed into Seth's attempt of a cure where he tries to merge the two of them together completely, and Cronenberg even had to delete a scene that Pogue had written in which our hero murdered a bag lady in an alleyway. It was cut out so we would sympathize more with his character.
You think?
And of course, Cronenberg got rid of the fact that Seth wouldn't talk for half the film because it's a stupid idea.
You're jealous!
Despite rewriting the entire script more or less, Cronenberg insisted that Pogue receive a screenwriting credit, as if it wasn't for him he wouldn't have been able to make the film in the first place. Finally, casting began and Jeff Goldblum got the lead role. Michael Keaton was offered the part, but he turned it down.
Because he's Batman, not Flyman.
John Lithgow auditioned for the role but didn't get it, and Richard Dreyfuss was also offered it but turned it down. Upon release, Jeff Goldblum actually wrote a letter to the original actor Vincent Price stating, "I hope you like the film as much as I liked yours." Price's response called the remake wonderful right up to a certain point when it went a little too far.
This one has too much substance.
The studio themselves weren't too happy with Goldblum being cast. They felt that he wouldn't be a bankable star and his face would be too difficult to work with on the special effects. Cronenberg started to see their point when Jeff suggested his girlfriend at the time, Gina Davis, to be the co-star. Cronenberg didn't want to work with a real-life couple, but was soon convinced that Gina was right for the role after her first reading. Producer Stuart Kornfeld suggested they audition for more actresses because it's the script that's brilliant, but admitted that nobody else even came close. Jennifer Jason Leigh and Laura Dern were both considered, but they wanted a more unknown actress. Chris Wallace, who did the creature designs for the Gremlins, was also scooped up for the insane special effects, and filming began in Toronto, Ontario, Canada between 1985 and 1986. Musician Brian Ferry was asked to make a song to help promote the film called Help Me, and clips of the movie were included in the music video. It was intended for the closing credits, but Cronenberg felt it didn't fit the film itself. It is, however, included briefly in the background of the bar scene. Filming ended in early 1986, and a rough cut was shown to the studio, who were very impressed. It was then screened in the spring of that year, and due to strong responses, the monkey-cat hybrid sequence was cut out. Much like a lot of Cronenberg's films, the movie was edited down to maintain the pacing and to take the gore down a notch. Can you tell he didn't direct the sequel? Only a few scenes were deleted entirely, but many were trimmed down. The original ending saw Veronica thrown into one of the pods and being knocked unconscious. The evil beard man from Douchebagtopia then uses some wires to electrify the bastard to death. Another ending saw Brundle just crawling to the prick face before just dying on his own. The special effects took 3 months just to design. They came up with the final creature first, and then the various steps to get Jeff Goldblum there afterwards. They wanted to give him an aging and cancerous look, losing teeth, hair, nails, and... is that his dick in a jar? There were several different looks that were tested before they got the ones they needed, ones that even today look astounding. The final stages of the transformation took nearly 5 hours to apply the makeup to Jeff Goldblum. Not surprisingly, the movie was a commercial success, despite taking a low-budget B-movie and turning it into a controversial gory horror. This was the most successful film of Cronenberg's career and the highest-grossing movie in the United States for 2 weeks, earning $40,456,565. Audiences reacted strongly to the graphic content and the heartbreaking love story, and the effects and Goldblum's performances were the most praised. Some even saw the film as a metaphor for the gradual deteriorating process of AIDS.
Everyone has AIDS! AIDS, AIDS, AIDS!
Cronenberg responded to this and said that it was unintentional, but he could see why others might see that. The Fly was nominated for AFI's 100 Years, 100 Thrills, and the famous line,
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
was nominated for their 100 Best Movie Quotes of all time. The quote is so famous, everyone uses it, but most don't even recognize what film it even began in. I guess you could say the same could go with this.
I'm saying I'm an insect who dreamt he was a man and loved it. But now the dream is over, and the insect is awake.
Although this one came from the novel Butterfly Dream Story, so it can't really take credit for that.
You're jealous!
Despite the original having 2 sequels, Cronenberg noted that his films would always have a definitive ending and would never even need one. Which is weird because The Fly clearly had an opening for a sequel. Regardless, in 1989 we got The Fly 2, directed by Chris Wallace, who was responsible for the effects in the first film. In the early 90s, it was reported that Gina Davis was involved with an alternate sequel to The Fly called Flies, directed by her husband at the time. Richard Jeffries was writing, and it would have featured her character giving birth to twin boys and her surviving the entire ordeal. In 2003, a second remake was announced to be in the works by Todd Lincoln and released in 2006. but it never happened. In 2008, Cronenberg returned to the franchise for an opera under the same name and proposed a sequel, but it never happened. In 2009, it was rumoured that David Cronenberg himself was directing a second remake of the film, but he didn't respond to these allegations until 2011. He admitted that he had written not a remake, but a sort of sequel, whatever that means, to his own film and would shoot it if 20th Century Fox gave the green light. In 2012, he was interviewed by Empire and he confessed that Fox actually wanted Guillermo del Toro or Michael Bay to make the picture. He also confessed that he approached Mel Brooks with his script, but he didn't like it because it wasn't like the original. He went on to say Fox were excited about his idea, but it kind of simmered down and now it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. He blamed it on budget constraints and the script was a little too radical. Who says radical anymore? For the studio, who thought it should be a low budget production. The script involved none of the same characters and updated with modern technology. In 2015, IW Publishing released a comic book miniseries called The Fly Outbreak, which is a direct sequel to The Fly 2, with Martin causing an outbreak of the disease and he has to try to prevent it from spreading. Despite the sequel or another possible sequel or even another possible remake, and despite even the comic book variation, I just find it very difficult to believe that anybody could do it better than the 86 version. In my opinion, not only one of the best films of the 80s, one of the best films of all time, and in my mind, the greatest horror movie that has ever been created.
You're jealous!